Sannyasya,
giving up.
Matpara,
being attached
to
me.
Ananyena,
without division.
without division.
Eva, certainly. Yogena, by practice of such bhakti yoga. Mam, upon me. Jyayantaha, meditating. Upasate, worship. Tesham, of them. Aham, I. Samutarta, the deliverer. Mrityu, of death. Samsara, in material existence. Sagarat, from the ocean. Bhavani, I become. Na, not. Chirat, after a long time. Parta, O son of Prita. Mai, upon me. Aveshita, fixed. Chetasam, those whose minds. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Suhotra Swami, Sri Prabhupada. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita. For them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. It is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. His duty is to render service to the Lord, and if he does not, then he will render service to Maya. As stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve Him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engagement, and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay, He will deliver a pure devotee, thus engaged, from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process, and others take the opportunity in various ways, but as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord Himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. In the Varaha Purana, this verse appears. Nayami Paramam Shtanam Archir Adi Gotim Dina Garudaskandam Aropya Yatiksham Anivarita. The purport of this verse is that a devotee does not need to practice Ashtanga Yoga in order to transfer his soul to the spiritual planets. The responsibility is taken by the Supreme Lord Himself. it clearly states here that he himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. Rather, the Supreme Lord, by his great mercy, comes at once, riding on his bird carrier Garuda, and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from this material existence. One simply has to practice the easy process of Krishna consciousness and fully engage himself in devotional service. Any intelligent man should always prefer the process of devotional service to all other paths. In the Narayaniya, this is confirmed as follows. Yavai sadhana sampati purushartha chatushtaye tayavina yad apnoti naro narayanashraya. The purport of this verse is that one should not engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by the mental speculative process. One who is devoted to the Supreme Personality can attain all the benefits derived from other yogic processes, speculation, ritual, sacrifice, charities, etc. That is the specific benediction of devotional service. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A devotee of the Lord can approach the supreme destination easily and happily. But this destination cannot be approached by any other process of religion. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is stated in the 18th chapter. Sarva dharman parityajya mamikam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami masrucha. One should give up all other processes of self-realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. There is no need for one to consider the sinful reactions of his past life, because the Supreme Lord fully takes charge of him. Therefore, one should not futilely try to deliver himself in spiritual realization. Let everyone take shelter of the Supreme Omnipotent Godhead Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. Yetu sarvani karmani mai sannyasam matpara onaninyaiva yogena mam jayanta upasati teshamaham samudarta mrityu samsara sagara vaminachira parta mai aveshita chetasam. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted unto me without deviation, engage in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having their minds fixed upon me, O son of Prita. For them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Mukam karoti vachalam mananayate vinimya tripataram vande Sri Guru Nitaranam. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada quoted a verse from the Varaha Purana, which is very significant. Nayami paramamshtana archir adi gatim vina. The word archir adi is referring to the mystical path of elevation, which is described in the Vedic scriptures. Those who follow the processes that Srila Prabhupada has referred to in the purport, such as yoga, karmic, well, it's all yoga. There are different kinds of yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, and so on. They traverse this path. They are elevated along this path, which is called archiradi. Now there are two kinds of followers of this path. There are those who are known as Pitri, the followers of the Pitriyana method. These persons are karmis. They're called karmis. This means they're interested in higher and higher states of material or sensual enjoyment. So they aspire, they're called Pitriyana because they aspire for the Pitriloka. The Pitriloka is a planet where, it's a heavenly planet, where the forefathers, you may know in India and also in other Eastern or Asian countries, people worship forefathers. And that used to be done all around the world. That practice has been long neglected in the Western world, in Europe. But even in ancient times it was also here. People used to worship their forefathers. So the purpose of this path is to attain the Pitriloka, the planet of the forefathers. Because those who are following Dharma, religion, they would, and worshipping the family line, respecting the family tradition, respecting elders. It was very much family oriented. Everything centered on the family. So by following this process, one could go to the Pitriloka and stay there and enjoy. Actually, Pitriloka is identified with the moon. Of course, now when we look at the moon through a telescope, we just see dust and mountains. But that's because of our eyes. That's all our eyes can see. But the moon is said to be a heavenly place. But in order to perceive that heavenly aspect of the moon, one needs a different kind of body than we have now. If you look at the moon with this body, you just see dust and rocks. So it is described in the Vedas that one who follows the Pitriyana path, worshipping the forefathers, performing sacrifices and so on, all the rituals of karma kanda, and he receives a body called Somaraja, a body of soma or nectar. This is a body fit for tasting heavenly nectar, heavenly sensual pleasures. So one who attains the Pitriloka can stay there and enjoy these heavenly pleasures for a long, long time. At least as long as his descendants on earth, the members of his family still on earth, continue to perform those rituals. Because those rituals in the Karmakanda path not only promote those persons to heaven, but they keep the forefathers in heaven too. But now in this age, this is the Kali Yuga. So all of this type of ritualistic religion, it hasn't already stopped. It is stopped, even in India. India is the last place in the face of the earth where you'll find people still doing these things. In Varanasi, in northern India, many Hindu families, they come to do the Shraddha ceremony, offer pinda to the Pitris, the forefathers. But that is growing less and less. And everywhere else in the world, it's pretty much discontinued. So then this path, the Pitriyana, is closed in the Kali Yuga. Then there's another method. It's called Devyana. And the Devyana path goes beyond Pitriloka. The goal is to attain the impersonal Brahma in stages, step by step, ascending up through higher and higher spheres of the universe, till finally one comes to the Brahmaloka, the topmost sphere. And then one stays there for the rest of the duration of the existence of this universe. And from the Vedas we know the span of duration of this universe is 325 trillion solar years, or 100 years of Brahma. Brahma, the four-headed creator, demigod of creation. His 100 years are equal to the entire duration of this universe. So, when this universe dissolves, when it breaks up and returns to the body of Mahavishnu, then those who have attained the Brahmaloka by this Devyana path, they can enter into the realm of Brahma, the realm of spiritual light. Now, as I explained in last night's lecture, that is also not the supreme destination, because we are spiritual persons. So if we're just floating in light, we want to be able to satisfy our personal desires. It is an impersonal position. So generally what happens is that the universe is, all the universes, there's many more than this one, they are withdrawn into the body of Mahavishnu. But then they come out again. He draws them in by his breath and he breathes them out. And when they come out again, then those yogis who attain this Brahma, impersonal light, they go back into those universes and again take a physical form. Of course, that will be a very exalted form on higher planets. So this is the Devyana path. People who have near-death experiences, you might have read, there's a common occurrence among persons who leave their bodies, say during a medical operation. They have an experience of entering a tunnel, and they float upwards towards the light at the end of the tunnel. Many, many people have spoken of this experience, and they've been recorded in books, no matter what their religion was, or whether they believed in God or not, or anything. But many people, they float upwards into the light, and then sometimes they pass out of the tunnel and they find themselves in a higher realm, some heavenly realm. Sometimes they actually experience it as the beginning of a path or a stairway going upward into the universe. But then a shining being, an effulgent, brilliant being, tells them to go back. It's not your time. So they go back into the body. As I said, many, many people in modern times have had this experience. And what is interesting is that this experience is described in the Vedas. This is the beginning of traversing this Archiradi path, this mystical path. This is exactly the experience described. The soul, at the time of death, the soul situated in the heart, it leaves the heart through what is called in Sanskrit a nadi. Nadi means a mystical channel, which is experienced as a tunnel. And as the soul leaves, passes through that tunnel, then it is met by a personality known as the Amanava Purush, which is a shining being. Actually, there is a succession of them. As one goes to higher and higher stages, one is guided by higher and higher Amanava Purushas. So the first one is the Purusha or being of Archis, which is effulgence, the sun's effulgence. So then one travels along the sun's rays to the next higher stage. Now this is described in essence at the end of the 8th chapter, these different stages, in the last verses of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Prabhupada explains them, how one is being guided along by demigods, these luminous beings, the demigod of the day, the demigod of the fortnight, the demigod of the moon, and the demigod of the lightning, and so on. So this is the path upward. So the whole Vedic process, the purpose of the Vedic religion is to be promoted along this path. But what is very significant here is in this verse, or these two verses, in the 12th chapter, Lord Krishna is saying that for one who surrenders to him, there's no need to worry about one's promotion along that path. Because for those who follow either the Pitri Uttiyana or Deviyana, they have to be very, very, very careful in their life not to commit any, what is called vikarma, any sin. Negative actions, because that drives the soul downward. The purpose of the Vedic Dharma is to promote the soul upwards, but if one commits vikarma, then the soul is driven downward. There's also an opposite path, which goes down, 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 finally to the Naraka, to hell, the region of the demons, and so on. That is all described in the Veda. But now people today almost think it's a fairy tale. But as I said, people do have these experiences, near-death experiences. And some people have experienced the other direction too, before they came back to their body. In fact, there was recently a film, maybe some of you have seen it, called Ghost. And it showed when people leave their bodies, if they were bad people, then these dark beings come and grab them and drag them away. These are the Yamadutas. This is all described in Vedic literature. The modern man today just barely has a glimpse of these things, but it's all laid out very, because this is a science. A science of both higher and lower realms of existence. So Krishna consciousness is the transcendental state of existence, beyond the various levels of this universe. This is the spiritual dimension. And so Krishna here says, for one who accepts the path of Krishna consciousness, which is surrendering to Krishna, then I come to him and deliver him from birth and death. And Srila Prabhupada stresses here in the purport that the way to become fixed on this path of Krishna consciousness is by chanting Krishna's holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is very important because in the Kali Yuga, you see, all other paths of elevation are closed. This modern age of Kali, is under demoniac influence. People are performing only vikarma, only sinful activities. And their future is very dark. I remember I was in Amsterdam some weeks ago. And I happened to go into one store, one shop, and they were playing inside the shop some very strange music. And later on, one devotee was explaining about this style of music. It's called house. Very distorted. Not really music, it's just noise. And this particular song they were playing, or I don't know if you could call it a song, but it was just some rumbling sound, some drums, some electronic distortion. And then over and over again, there was this voice, also very distorted voice, which just kept saying like a mantra, "Send me to hell. Send me to hell. Send me to hell." So this is the culture today. This is what people want. The whole human culture is aimed in that direction, to go to hell. So, the ancient Vedic path of elevation along the Archiradi path is closed. But still, one can be delivered from the ocean of birth and death simply by chanting Krishna's holy name. Not chanting "Send me to hell." We have to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very nice narration about a Brahmana named Ajamil. So, Ajamil, he was born in a very religious family, Brahminical or priestly family. So, as a young man, as a boy, he was raised to follow all religious principles. But when he reached his adolescence, his teen years, he was deviated from the path. He was tempted off the path. He happened to be passing through the forest, collecting some flowers, picking flowers for worship. As we see here, when we worship the Lord, flowers are used, a very important aspect of worship. So he was picking flowers, and he happened to see a lusty man and woman embracing in the forest. So this agitated his mind, and he began to meditate on this scene that he had observed, and then he left home. He had been married already, because marriages are arranged when in Vedic culture, boys and girls are very young. They may not live together right away as husband and wife, but they know, even at age 12, 13, that here's my husband, here's my wife. So in this way, that saves them from being drawn into illicit relationships. But he gave up his religious way of life, he gave up his young wife, he gave up his family. And he took to chasing prostitutes. And in this way he became completely degraded. He became a drunkard. Every bad habit one could think of, he was doing. But his religious background, his previous worship of the Lord as a Brahmana, it manifests in his mind when later, actually when he was quite old, he fathered a son. He got married to some loose woman, and he fathered a son with her. So he named his son Narayan. Narayan is the name of Krishna. He wasn't thinking of Krishna. It is still a common name in India. People will be named Narayan, just as a family tradition. So he named his son Narayan. And he was very attached to his son. So he was always calling to his son, Narayan, Narayan. So unconsciously he was chanting the name of Krishna. Without intention, but he was doing that. So it so happened that his time to die came. And because he was so sinful, he'd been sinful for so many years. So these Yamadutas, they appeared. These very fearsome agents of the Lord of Death, the Lord of the underworld, Yamaraj. Okay, and when they come, they're very frightening, very fearful to see. And they have a kind of rope. A rope that can tie the mind. Because when we die, what leaves the body is our soul encased in the mind, which is known as the subtle body. We have this gross physical body, but we also have a subtle or mental body, astral body. So when the astral body becomes dislodged, separated from the gross body at the time of death, if one is very sinful, then these Yamadutas, they throw this mystic rope around the astral body, and they drag it very swiftly down this hellish path. And all kinds of very fearsome things happen along the way. This path is compared to a desert. It's like an endless desert, and one is dragged through it very, very swiftly at amazing speeds over stones and cactuses, and it's very painful. And then fearsome wild dogs, they come running up and they start to bite. This is of course happening on the mental plane, not on the physical plane. So they're biting the astral body, ripping it and tearing it. Terrible pain. And then one is finally brought before Yamaraj. Yamaraj is the Lord of Death. He's the judge of the sinful souls. So before Yamaraj, the entire life of the sinful person is recounted or replayed. And then, according to the sinful karma, Yamaraj sentences this sinful person to a particular kind of punishment in hell. And of course, these punishments are very fearsome. What they do, the purpose of these punishments, is to reduce the consciousness, reduce the human consciousness. Because when one dies as a human being. But when one goes to hell, by the application of pain, excruciating pain, which seems to last over hundreds and thousands of years, although it is over in a second actually. But time is relative. The higher one goes in the universe, then time stretches out. And that's why Brahma's 100 years is for as long as the span of existence of the whole universe. 325 trillion of our years, because time stretches out up there. And when one goes below the earthly, the middle region, then time contracts. So in hell, one experiences millions and millions of years in just a flash of our time. But when you're there, it's millions of years. So in that time of punishment, hellish punishment, the consciousness is reduced. And when the consciousness reaches the level that it is supposed to reach according to Yamaraj's decree, then that living entity is released from hell. And he enters a lower form of life. See? By pain, his mentality is broken down from human to perhaps insect, fish, dog. In that consciousness, just like a pig. The mentality of a pig is that a pig thinks that stool, excrement, is food. You see, just like when we smell food and we start to salivate. This is very nice food. So when a pig smells stool, a pig salivates. Thinks this is very nice smell. But just imagine how much of a change the human mind would have to go through to come to that point. Pig mentality. Yeah, that's why one has to go to hell. By punishment, by torture. Just like in the Second World War, or not just in the Second World War, we can mention the concentration camps in the Second World War, but also in more recent times, there was one airplane crash in the Andes in South America. So some people died in the plane crash. This was up in the snow, high mountains, and others lived. There was nothing to eat except for the dead bodies of the other passengers. So now, a normal human being would never think to eat a dead human body. But when one is in a tormented state, ice and cold and no food, then gradually one starts to look at the dead body and think, well, maybe it's not so bad. So they were feasting on dead bodies until they were rescued. So that we can see how this works. So by the hellish punishment, the consciousness is reduced, and then the soul is released and enters some lower form, and then gradually by this evolution of the souls come up to the human platform, where again they have a chance in the human form of life for liberation, for promotion, elevation, liberation. Go back home, back to God. So Ajamil, by his sinful karma, he was supposed to go to hell. The Yamadutas had come for him. They were just throwing the rope around him. But Ajamil was so attached to his son. So when one dies, one thinks of that which one is attached to, that which one holds very dear. So he thought of his son, and he was calling his son, but he was calling the name that he'd given his son, Narayan, which is the name of Krishna. So the Yamadutas, they were considering that he's sinful, we will take him to hell to be punished. But when this Ajamil chanted the holy name Narayan, the Vishnu Dutas from Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, they appeared and they drove the Yamadutas back. Don't touch him. And the Yamadutas, they were surprised, but he's so sinful. It is our duty to take him. And they said, no, he's chanted the name of God, Krishna. So he is sinless. We cannot touch him. So Ajamil, he saw this and he was very surprised. So the Yamadutas, they left, and the Vishnudutas told him that now, yes, you have chanted the holy name of Narayan. You are sinless. But you chanted this name in ignorance. So you will have a little bit more time in your body. You're not have to leave your body now. You have a little more time. And in this time now, you should surrender to Krishna. And you should learn to chant his holy name properly, in purity and in love. So he took this seriously. He'd seen everything. He'd seen how he would have almost been taken to hell. And so when he came back into bodily consciousness, he gave up all his sinful ways and he began to chant the name of the Lord according to the method of bhakti, of sadhana bhakti, as a spiritual practice. Just as we do in the Krishna consciousness movement, chanting a regulated number of Hare Krishna mantras every day, following regulative principles, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. As Srila Prabhupada explains here, using this human form of life, using the energy of this human body to serve Krishna. So this he did, and in the time he had left, he became completely purified, completely Krishna conscious. And then when he at last did leave his body, he left this material world, entered Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world, and attained his eternal relationship with Krishna. So, as I said, this is a sinful age. Human culture is sinful culture now. Everyone is hell-bound. That is a fact. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is being spread to every town and village. So, in this age, although everyone is so disqualified, so unfortunate, we have this one great good fortune, that if we simply chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then we are situated on the path of Krishna consciousness. Then we become recipients of the causeless mercy, the unlimited mercy of Lord Krishna. So such a simple thing. Just chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And just by chanting, even without knowledge, as we learn from this pastime or this narration of Ajamil, even if we chant ignorantly, that destroys all sins. What to speak if we chant seriously? Then we can get the full benediction that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering us. Because Lord Chaitanya, he is Radha and Krishna mixed in one identity. The transcendental loving couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, is here. Picture of their lordships. Gandharvika Giridhari, they are worshipped in Radha Kund, Krishna's So they are the eternal transcendental lovers. So Lord Krishna, although he is the Supreme Lord himself, he is fascinated by the love of Srimati Radharani for him. And he wonders, he thinks that what is she experiencing? He wants to understand her position. He wants to know what she sees in Krishna that keeps her by his side for all eternity. He wants to experience the bliss, the transcendental ecstasy that she feels in her loving devotion to Krishna. So when Krishna is thinking like that about the love of Srimati Radharani for him, Krishna becomes gold. Normally Krishna is black. He's called Sham Sundar. This is the name of Krishna. This means he's dark like the new rain cloud. But when he thinks of Srimati Radharani's love for him, then he assumes a golden color. Gauranga. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Radha and Krishna mixed in one person, whose heart is overflooding with the ecstasy of their loving affairs, he has brought in this sinful age of Kali and personally delivered to us the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it is certainly capable of liberating everyone, delivering them from their sins. But by Lord Chaitanya's special mercy in this particular age, if one seriously chants Hare Krishna, he is awarded with something that is far, far greater, unlimitedly greater than simply salvation, liberation from sin. And this is Krishna Prema, true love of Krishna. So this Lord Chaitanya is offering to everyone. He's not discriminating. He doesn't care what family you were born in, whether it was a pious Hindu Brahmin family, or whether you were born in a family of what is known as mlecha. Mlecha means outcast. Swedish people are considered mlecha. Outcasts. Followers of Vedic civilization. They look upon persons who live outside of the Varnashram Dharma, outside of the system of 4 castes and 4 orders, to be barbarians. So all the European people are barbarians. So, but that doesn't matter. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Kirata Unamrit Linda Pulkasha, giving a whole list of barbarian races. If they take shelter of Lord Krishna, Shuddhyanti Tasmai Vishnu, they are immediately purified by the power of Krishna. So Krishna is being delivered to us by Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya. Krishna's holy name, they're non-different. And this holy name, delivered by Lord Chaitanya, is flavored with Krishna Prema, with pure love of Krishna. So if we chant the holy name of Krishna, given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, then we can not only become completely purified, but develop pure love of Krishna. Here Krishna is saying that he will personally come to take us back to Godhead if our minds are matpara, ananinya. That means attached to him without deviation. If the mind is focused, fixed upon Krishna. So how is that done? That is done only by love. It cannot be accomplished artificially.